Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're going to have some fun with you guys here today as we dive into topics that are critical, imperative, important, absolutely must-haves in your listen or in your repertoire, your quiver of go-tos for financial independence or building your wealth, okay? We talk a lot about three-dimensional investing here on Money on Tap. We're all partners and planners with Brayshaw Financial Group. Speaking of which, guess who's on the show with us today, folks? It is Ben Brayshaw and Dan Micklin. How you guys doing today?
I'm doing good, Seth. I'm doing well. Dan, you doing good?
Yeah, I'm excited for the show. I'm excited for spring kicking in and, school year wrapping up. All good things ahead.
I'm excited about today's show. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to really consider that they've covered all the bases. I think there's a lot of things that we talk about in the investment world that we don't really spread our wings too far into the outskirt areas of protecting yourself and your assets on the levels, really on the fringes. And for some of these people, the fringes are reality. And I think, as we talk to people, good sound investing isn't just, buying a stock or a mutual fund or a bond. It's about protecting yourself and putting up hedges of protection throughout your entire life in lots of different ways. And I think today's going to be a good conversation. I think it's going to be a difficult conversation for some of our listeners because this might come close to home too. And, we'll be sensitive on that. And I think we, hope and pray that nobody's dealing with some of this stuff, but we know there are people out there, and we hope that maybe this advice today and the conversation will really guide people in a direction that maybe prevents tragedy financially as well.
Yeah. Topic today is, what does it mean to be fully insured? And you really touched on it there a lot, Ben, where it's as planners, it's a part of what our clients look to us for, to have the experience, the insight, and the understanding of how do we protect ourselves or our families or our loved ones or the things that we care about. Maybe it's maybe it is a foundation or some kind of a meaningful purpose work in your life, and extending beyond just an accumulation or a portfolio or an investment idea. There's so much more that we do here, right here on Money on Tap with you, to protect you and to look out for what's in ultimately your interest. And it is a sensitive topic, and we're going to be touching on some things that all of us have experienced, have brushed shoulders at least with, if not gone through and experienced ourselves. Like, I'll raise my hand there, and I will look forward to just sharing some personal experience here with you as we move through an awesome opportunity. And I love how there's seasons in all of this that we do. It's fun to get into the investment topic and the investment idea that's hot. We're going to talk about a little bit of that Money on the News here in a minute. But it's also good for us to just kind of get a break and be able to do things differently that maybe we haven't done for the last, 10 years in most of the investment world as a whole. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff coming up as well. So all those teasers out there for you to let you know we want you to be here with us. We're glad you're here with Money on Tap, and we can't wait to get into it with you. And right now it is time for Money in the News.
And coming to us first from the Wall Street Journal, written by Deepa Seethraman and Bieber Jin, is an article here. ChatGPT has investors pouring billions into AI startups. No business plan required. And this is an article touching on something that's just all over the news these days. So I thought it would be important to kind of bring this to the forefront and have a conversation around it because, certainly investors out there are looking for opportunities to catch a ride on this whole AI phenomenon. And, there's one particular chat GPT that you kind of hear about a lot, particularly around graduation time, as there's been a number of college students out there caught up in some plagiarism scandals. But this is a tool that's out there, and there's one level of access to it that's absolutely free. And it kind of gives you an opportunity to interact with the software as if it was another human, and you can just directly ask it questions and kind of sit back and catch the response. And then that one side of it, which seems to have some benign practical applications, there's the investment end of it, and then some other people have kind of darker concerns around where AI is going, and we open the trap door to the Terminator movies, or what's exactly going on here with the future of this tool. But it is something that's in the news, and I thought it'd be important to discuss.
It's funny. My daughter just graduated from college, so I'm officially getting older. And I was actually talking to her about it. She said,
"Congratulations on that, by the way. That's such a huge milestone. I just want to take a minute to recognize that's awesome."
That was all due to my wife.
Way to go, Kim.
Seriously. I was talking to my daughter about it, and she was telling me actually this year her professors are using this, chat GPT and so forth to evaluate plagiarism. And that was like something. And she was telling me how it's not foolproof. It's not perfect. She's like, I wrote this paper. She's like, it was a Christian college. She's like, I quoted a Bible verse. I put it in quotes. It was in my reference page at the end. And she's like, I didn't copy anything else. And it came up 41% plagiarized, according to chat GPT. So she did another one. Professor talked to her about it. She's like, I'm writing these papers myself. So anyway, she ended up removing the quotes from her last paper and still came up 10% as that. And he was still not happy about it. And she's like, I'm writing, so there's definitely some imperfections to this software. And it's kind of interesting, as she was telling me, that a lot of the kids are actually having these problems. So, but I think she was saying that you can tell, if someone's at over 60 or 80%, they totally have taken a paragraph out of someone's book. They know how this thing works. They know how to run the tests too to see if it's done. So she's running these things beforehand, trying to figure out what word can I remove that.
It's funny that people using the same tool to cheat, and then the same tool catches them in the end, right? So yeah. It's an incredible application. There's so many potential uses for this thing, but as an investment, there's some concern around, this is being another gold rush here, where there is just money flying into this space so fast from the venture capital perspective that, we're going to see these tickers and these IPOs popping up left, right, and center, I think. And it's going to be hard to discern, which ones are really in the business to last and which ones we're just able to gather a bunch of assets and kind of take it to market.
It's not an independent software. It has to run. A lot of people don't realize it has to run on another software. It is not a platform software, as they call it. It is some sort of functioning on top of it. So you have a software. It's kind of like, a way I envision it is if you have Microsoft Outlook, and you're running email, you still need an email provider, potentially to do that. It's a something that uses another item. So people have a software and they say, hey, we want you to use this artificial intelligence software to understand something in our world or in our business, but this is the software you have to sit on. And that itself doesn't make it an only provider of a solution. You have to have a previous software it's gonna work with.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. What is the threshold that they're going, for instance, with Cassidy's paper writing and what's going on in colleges and how are they proofing these? At some point, you could really fully write a paper and still have the content be, what from other sources, even though you are yourself not necessarily plagiarizing anything or taking it directly from a source. It could come through in a way that it's thinking or recognizing it as another source. So I wonder what that threshold winds up becoming. It's an interesting tool in that capacity. And one of the other sides of that is its ability to actually generate some pretty complex or sophisticated content, in response from the input or the source of the questions. And, at what point does that content actually become original? Or is that in case I don't believe I've seen that the case in point that it is original content at this point. But does that become the next thing about this? and certainly the concerns around the AI and there being kind of it's a wild west of sorts. There's really no compliance generally being administered to its function or its use out there. So I've been watching a lot of Elon Musk lately, and I'm wondering whether it's going to happen or who's going to do what in order to try to kind of curb the possibility of there being some AI outbreak or something like this. I hate to go down the Terminator road, but that is a fear.
Yeah, well, I think, the concept of this is that there's just so much money. The whole article is always about how much money is being poured into the AI space and the hype that's going to occur here. People are pouring billions of dollars into the space saying there's money to be made, and we don't know where it is. But I think you make a great point, Seth, that just the infringement of people's rights or what's going on or, there's always somebody doing something that you don't even know that might be criminal in the background about you, your life, whatever it is, right? I mean, your business.
There's almost no question that somebody's going to apply it that way, right?
Yeah.
That's human nature, unfortunately, through the history of time. We invent a tool and somebody uses it for no good. And, one thing wasn't in this article, but I found concerning and kind of just reading about it in general was kind of the pioneer of it, and the name's escaping me, but the gentleman behind really the initiation and the early development of this program or out of AI in general is one of the foremost speakers against it, basically saying pull the plug and bury this thing. And he's advocating that, anywhere he can at every opportunity he can. So it's one of those things that kind of leans towards maybe this is a technology that we don't need after all.
Yeah. Well, next up, I don't know that AI would have predicted this one, but Bud Light sales drop is accelerating amid Dylan Mulvaney fiasco and is now spilling into other Bud brands. Now, this is, obviously it's pretty well known. It's on pretty much every news topic that Dylan Mulvaney, a transgender man, has decided, Bud Light has put them on the can, and it has just done havoc for Bud Light, and and I think it's scary, but Bud Light has seen Bud Light sales were down 23.4% versus a year ago, week of April 29th, and I think that they maybe didn't understand their audience.
That was, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that has to be one of the most tone-deaf, ridiculous things I've ever seen a company do.
Yeah.
I mean, they really don't get their market at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, what market's, quite ready for that leap. But, the CEO came out and said, hey, listen, we don't tend to be divisive, and this is, not.
They didn't even know this was happening. You just don't print cans at this volume and do this without not having awareness.
And, and the executive whose idea this apparently was, who's taking a leave of absence, of course, but, she was saying that Bud Light's kind of an older brand, and her quote was, we want to be less fratty. Again, so far off the mark, I can't even, but it's just like, it's really hard to imagine. When you're number one in the business, I mean, you're literally number one, the market share is yours, you don't need to change a thing. To go ahead and come out with this that's just really foolish.
Yeah. I think the thing that people didn't realize, or they're just starting to get awareness, the article points out, is that it's not just Bud sales, which is the one that got hit the hardest, but their Michelob Ultra, Modelo Especial, these things are all starting to slowly see significant drops as people realize that that Budweiser itself is a parent of many, many alcoholic beverages, and that's kind of interesting. And I think bringing this to light, like, this isn't about where anyone stands on anything. It's just that I think in this kind of woke culture and what's going on, I think the point this article really brings is you almost don't know what to expect from any investment company that you may consider investing in. And I think that, it is alcohol, and I'm not an alcohol investor. I'm not even an alcohol drinker. But, from that standpoint, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's just so much woke culture in almost everything that you can just see that it doesn't mean that the brand is bad, or, the whatever product they're making is any different or whatever. You can just make some sort of woke decision, and your entire investment can go downhill. And the vulnerability and understanding who's really running the company, what kind of standards are behind it, really does play a role bigger than we probably would have ever played in the past than we do today in today's culture and the pressure on that.
looking at how much Bud Light was down and Bud was down, and the rest of the brands as well. Wherever you stand on this as a cultural topic, or wherever we're at with this in our country, I just wonder how many people are watching this and like either making a decision just not to drink, period. And they're like, okay, that's it. I'm no longer going down this road anymore. Or if it just is more brand specific because of the, the content of what they're putting out as a brand, and people saying that's not what they're going to or want to support. Either way, it's just unbelievable. I've watched so many different people's responses to this, and memes generated and content on Instagram that has been funny, at least, is what I would say.
Yeah, early results are people are sticking with their beer. I mean, Miller Lite and Coors and these other brands have picked up the slack immediately and are certainly enjoying this. But yeah, with this phenomenon on the internet, Seth, I mean, between Kid Rock and shooting up the 12-pack and all the stuff you see, I mean, it's...
Oh, I know, right?
It's a visceral reaction. I mean, $6 billion in market cap in the first week.
Oh, I know.
I mean, that will cause some ad execs to lose their jobs in a hurry. That's incredible.
I think that, even just making her, take a leave of absence, they should have been like, this shouldn't have been done. Who approved this? Everyone's fired. This is definitely a higher end corporate thing for them to lie about the fact that they didn't know and this was happening. Like, you don't make a change like this and approve the poster boards and the storyboards of what this is going to be and the campaign story. Like, this is, and the thing is this just tells you that the entire company is just garbage. The whole leadership is garbage.
I hope that this is something that has a different effect, like right around your community, because there's so many different. Both of us live in kind of epicenters of breweries, right? There's so many people that are creating their own beers and putting it out there to the local market. I just hope that the local guy is just kind of like the farmer out there that receives the benefit of the egg prices shooting through the roof. So now you walk down to the store and you buy your eggs there, or your beers from the guy that's brewing it down the street for you, or lady that's brewing it down the street for you, if that's what you're doing. I just hope it has some impact that way to benefit some of the people around us that we care about. So,
and next up we have, this is coming to us written by George Glover for Business Insider. Load up on Treasury bills for the juicy yields because the debt limit standoff will likely be resolved, billionaire bond king Bill Gross says. And Bill Gross is another kind of frequent contributor here by nature of his articles and opinions published. And he's been a long time well-renowned bond trader and an expert in that particular segment of the investment world. And, the kind of sidebar to the article is this whole debt limit crisis that America is going through right now. That's likely to be resolved. They've increased it, each and every one of the 78 other times we've been up against this. So, personally speaking, can't certainly guarantee any of these things, particularly with the government we have going on right now, but they're very likely to negotiate their way through and raise the limit, and we'll get past this. But what Gross is saying is that that's the concern around that and the likely outcome is creating a little bit of a bubble in short-term treasuries that, he personally is looking to take advantage of and advising people to take a good look at as well.
Well, I think that I like treasuries. We actually moved into some short-term treasuries, about a month or so ago. I do like them. I think it's a solid play. But like Bill Gross says, there's not a 100% chance that this gets resolved. I think interest rates for the first time are really at a place where they have become an investable asset. Before we used the phrase, it's like dragging an anchor behind a boat. It had no yield. So you buy bonds and fixed instruments for yield. You want to get your money back at the end of the term, and you want the yield in between. That's the whole point. So with the yield being so low, it was really just, why are we bothering? But now, for people who are really on fixed income, looking for solid returns, for a yield standpoint, government securities are, that's why they're rated as high as they are. But, there is that possibility that, they shut the government down and there's risk of your assets. I think we'd be naive to think that our government is truly as strong as it was. We saw one of our articles said that the currency reserve went from 73% U.S. dollar down to 53% or something like that. It was like a 20% drop. That's a concerning global item for us. It's the power of our currency that makes these bonds so strong. And if we start shutting down governments and we have real political problems, it's a much bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean, treasuries
we've been through the government.
Go ahead, Seth.
We've been through a government shutdown before, and things still got resolved, and it's happened 78 times since 1960. I don't see this being the time where it doesn't get resolved or fixed, as much as there is enough out there to probably say that the two sides of the aisle are probably not going to get along on a lot of stuff right now. This is one that they both seem to come together on every single time.
Yeah, hopefully that remains the case. I mean, U.S. Treasury is considered the no risk asset, right? Well, something like default certainly pushes that into the risk class. But history tells us, like I said, 78 out of 78 times we've resolved it, and it's still going to lean towards that's a likely outcome here.
Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you are out in the podcast world, we thank you for subscribing and liking, and thank you for sending us an email, letting us know, hey, I'm a new subscriber to Money on Tap. If that's you, we have something for you. We would love to send you, just as a thank you for being new to Money on Tap and subscribing to us. And we cannot wait to get back into it here with you. We're going to talk about what does it mean to be fully insured. Lots of insurance out there and lots of different purposes and uses for these insurance. Well, guess what? We're going to start talking about something that you have probably never heard about here at Money on Tap. And it's a pleasure for us to introduce and come back to you with a guest on this show. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Folks, it is so much fun for us to bring you Money on Tap. My name's Seth Kressman, and I am one of the hosts here at Money on Tap. I'm also a financial planner. That's what we do. That's what Ben and I do. And the fun part is we get to have this radio show. We talk about important things that we think you need to listen to and be aware of to help raise the bar as far as your financial literacy. It's a big part of what we're trying to do here. The other thing that we're doing here as well, as financial planners, we are welcoming you to come and call us and to join us at Brayshaw Financial Group. Experience what complete wealth management looks like. Let's take a look at all sides of the issue, get a three-dimensional perspective, and put a plan around your next step. It's so critical. And so many people just leave this part out and then they find out later, oh, if I only would have known. Hey, don't let that be your story. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you have $250,000 of investable assets today, our plan is free to you. We think it's important for you to know the facts and have a playbook so you can have a successful retirement. Give us a call at 855-226-8551. Thanks for listening.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And I want to thank the podcast listeners and new podcast subscribers for reaching out to us and dropping us a note, letting us know that you've joined Money on Tap. We appreciate you, and we want to send you something. And if that's you, welcome aboard. We're glad you're here with us today. We are going to be talking about what does it mean to be fully insured. And we talk a lot in three-dimensional investing around one of these legs of our financial stool or our three-dimensional investing, which is insurance. That's where we're going to spend the majority of our time today. And what our hope is here is that we're starting to have conversations, right? Maybe it's an idea that you've already had a conversation about, and maybe we can add some value to or answer some questions around some of these ideas for you, and fill in the blank. Or maybe it's completely new. Maybe this is something that you've just never been presented the opportunity to hear. I will say, from the perspective of having been here from the beginning of Money on Tap, this is a first for us at Money on Tap to be talking about some of the specifics of what we're going to be talking about today. And to bring us into that, it's a pleasure to introduce you to Mark Creamer. Mark, welcome to Money on Tap.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Yeah. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you specialize inside of protecting. And you talk. I love that you talk about family and protecting families, but just the specifics of what it is that you do inside of the insurance realm, and you know what, why you love to do it would be also really helpful.
Absolutely. I'd love to share this with you guys. So when I think about insurance, and I realize not a lot of people like to talk about insurance, but it's one of those necessary evils that we have in life that if we don't have it, we sure wish we would have had it. And the area that I deal with is specifically supplemental health insurance. And what I mean by that is everybody says to me, I've got great health insurance, I've got coverage, I'm fully covered. And the reality is that health insurance that you might have is going to pay the doctors and clinics and the hospital charges and the lab tests. Those guys are going to be just fine. But the area that I deal with is what's called supplemental. And sometimes I can call it complementary insurance in that it goes along with it, with your regular health insurance, to pay for things that health insurance doesn't help you with. Time off work, childcare, travel, lodging, copays, deductibles, maybe having money to be able to pay the lease on your building if you're a business owner. So these are the kinds of things that jump up in people's minds after the fact lots of times if they don't know about this kind of coverage before. And this is what GoFundMe pages are all about. They can't pay their bills.
Mark, I've got great health insurance. Are you telling me that this is just not covered in my health insurance?
Most of the time, you do not have the ability to go back to your health insurance company and say, hey, I can't pay my rent this month because my deductible is so high. Can you give me $2,000 to pay my rent or my mortgage? They're probably going to tell you no. So
that's a bummer.
So yeah, these are the things that people they don't think about until it's too late.
So what kind of things that can happen to you, would trigger a benefit in the kind of coverages you're offering?
Okay. So the areas specifically that I offer deal with accidents and injuries, on or off the job, cancer, heart attack and stroke, and any kind of an intensive care situation if somebody's in an ICU unit. So if I think about the one that jumps up most and really costs folks a lot, cancer. Cancer is an extremely expensive illness to have. And again, you might be able to get the best care, but you're going to have a lot of expenses that go along with it. So in that particular case, with the products that we offer benefits that as you go through your treatments, we're going to put money back in your pockets. And so an example of that, say you're diagnosed with an internal cancer and you have our best level coverage, immediately we're going to send out $6,000. And hopefully that's going to help with the deductibles that you have. But then as you go through your treatments, every single day you spend in the hospital, $800. Every radiation and chemo treatment, $480. And again, this is on our best level coverage. We have lower levels to fit pretty much anybody's budget. There's, like I say, planning appointments. There's screening appointments. In the area of heart attack and stroke, physical therapy is a big thing as you're recovering. Also, heart transplants. In the area of accidents and injuries, if you break a bone, there's a benefit for every bone in your body. So for instance, your thigh, $10,000, your little finger, $400. Because all of this interrupts the process that you have as you're making money or building your wealth. And so these are benefits that get paid out as you go through your treatments.
So we talked a little bit about the benefit side. You mentioned, a kind of an option to fit all budgets. Why don't you talk a little bit about the cost? What is this kind of plan going to cost somebody?
Okay. Yeah, so our company builds 4 different levels of coverage, and as I said, we can fit something into pretty much anybody's budget. So let's say on the average, a 45 to 50-year-old might want a cancer plan. As an individual, they're going to pay on the bottom end about $25 a month, on the top end about $100 a month. They can also cover their families for, on the low end, $30, $39, $40 a month, up to about $179. That would cover the husband, wife, and as many kids as they have. That's on the cancer plan. On the accident plan, it ranges for a person 45 years old, $15 a month on the bottom end, $78 a month on the top end, generally speaking.
So each of these is a separate plan you would purchase. So you're going to be in a position to cover what's of most concern to you individually.
Correct. Yeah, and you can pick and choose the different levels within each. So when I work with families, I want to make sure that we're giving as broad a coverage as we can to try to fit their needs, because one of the hardest things for me is that we've put in place a cancer policy, but they needed a heart policy or they needed an accident plan, that sort of thing. So we can use different levels of coverage to fit the budget, however people want to look at this.
So what's the approach? See, I mean, you're going into this, you're meeting with a family. They have concerns in general, but maybe not something specific. What kind of consultation do you go through? Is it family history driven? Like how do you help somebody conclude what's the right fit for them?
Right. So when we walk in, when we talk with families and business owners and employees, when we're working with families, one of the first things I'm going to bring up are some statistics. So, for instance, in the area of heart attack and stroke, one out of every 3 deaths for people under 44 years of age is due to a heart attack. There's over 40,000 children that are born with congenital heart defects that ultimately may need surgeries or may cause problems down the road. In the area of cancer, 1 out of every 3 people is men or women is going to be diagnosed with cancer at some point in their lifetime. 3 out of every 4 families are going to experience it. And then when you start talking about the out-of-pocket expenses that you end up with, you can easily, with an accident or injury, have about $7,000 to $8,000 average of out-of-pocket expense that's not covered by health insurance. When you look at the travel and the costs of drugs for chemo and radiation, chemo drugs can be in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $20,000 a month. All of that is not going to be covered all the time by your health insurance. You're going to have to pay a copay on that. So we talk about the statistics of what's your risk. Then we talk about what the effects are. And we talk about the fact that your coverage that you might have already is just the top of the iceberg. It's the stuff underneath the water that you can't really see. And then we kind of get into, okay, how does this manifest?
Does that so you pay the cost of the insurance. So for our listeners, there is no copay once you have an event that qualifies inside your scenario. You guys are essentially trying to help cover those copays for the things that you insure. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah, these are, again, for all those things that you have to dig into your pocket to pay because your health insurance doesn't cover it.
Mark, this is, we talk to our clients. I mean, there's been a huge evolution in the insurance world, and so many people are just not informed in this. Like life insurance is like kind of the, you buy your auto insurance, you buy your home insurance, then you have kids, right? And you buy your life insurance, you buy that term insurance policy. And, then maybe you feel like you've graduated to your job's doing better and you want to get something more permanent and you don't want that insurance to end on some level. So you add a permanent policy. That's kind of the American story, I think, that has been, passed through our culture. And then there's been this, evolution of so many different pieces to the insurance world where you can buy term insurance that has, terminal illness coverages and chronic illness coverages and heart attack and stroke and long-term care coverage. They have these like convertible policies, and that's really where the insurance world has gone. But there is still this underlying void that is kind of like how to be fully insured. Like there's this kind of piece that everyone goes home and says, I hope I don't get that phone call that has that life-threatening, devastating news that says, hey, I've got cancer, and the world looks entirely different today. And you just, some of your insurance policies, some of the life policies will cover some areas of this stuff, but it's kind of like there's this black hole in the middle, and it sounds like that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, you're right. I think, that's the other part of that triangle of insurance is life insurance. And life insurance generally, in my mind, has a specific purpose. It's to allow a legacy. It's there to allow a family to move on past the death of someone. And yes, you can put all the riders on there, and some of them have trigger points that we want to really make sure that we're covering. One of the more common ones that I have seen in years past as I've been doing this is the diagnosis of cancer has to be diagnosed as terminal in some policies before that death benefit can be accessed early. That's a gap, and that's where the policies that we have it covers some of those gaps. And our plans, they actually will cover in addition to anything else that you have. So if you've got a great policy like that, especially in the area of cancer or heart transplants, you want to have as much money coming in as possible because sometimes those diagnoses can be long-term. But yeah, these are areas of gaps that people don't think about. And unfortunately, going back to the statistics, for instance, with cancer, the stats are about 42% of families that have a diagnosis of cancer in them are going bankrupt within 2 years.
What I think is interesting about this coverage and as you mentioned, the trigger point, because we do work in living benefit insurance quite extensively, but, if you find yourself in a position where you've met the definition and you have the ability to draw down from this living benefit life insurance policy, we often put those in place not only for the living benefit to address an illness, but, with eyes towards a future income stream. So to have an opportunity to tap into, a product like what Mark's talking about here and get through, what is hopefully a very short-term scenario without having to tap into that acceleration of death benefit and the living benefit policy and be able to continue to earmark that for legacy purposes, or if the condition you're facing just progresses to the point where, you exhaust the coverages available here, I think it's just another tool to extend the protection you're looking for.
Folks, you're listening to Money on Tap, and today we have a guest with us, Mark Creamer, that is talking about getting fully insured, having coverage for supplemental, having coverage for cancer, having coverage for accident. These are stories that, if you've come across them, really are traumatic. They affect the family in deep, deep ways. And just the statistic that you were sharing there a minute ago, 46% of people that go through cancer experience bankruptcy within 2 years. That is monumental. And if you are early on, especially early on, in trying to generate or create wealth for your family, this is something that is of the utmost importance to pay attention to, whether it's right for you or not. It's a conversation that's worthy of having and understanding more. If you want to understand more, give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We'd love to welcome you here at Money on Tap, Brayshaw Financial Group, and introduce you to Mark so that you can have a fuller conversation and really understand the specifics of how something like this can work for you. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
For a number of our listeners, they have a lot of questions, and you might be one of them. Today, we're just offering what we call Zoominars, webinars over Zoom meeting rooms where we have top experts, Social Security, estate planning, and financial planning experts for you to speak with, do a private consultation that way today. We're also having webinar-based Zoominars where we're going to have multiple groups where you can be part of that and enjoy that as well. Give us a call at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com to schedule your Zoominar.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Hey, a special thanks to podcast listeners out there that are subscribing to Money on Tap. We appreciate that. That's one of the things that helps us out here to get the message out for people that are looking to learn how to build wealth, want to know more about three-dimensional investing, how can they engage in a healthy way around their finances, and also make introductions to people like Mark Creamer, who's with us today. If that's you and you've subscribed, drop us a note. Let us know. We want to send something to you just as a thank you for joining us at Money on Tap. Also, if you're not familiar with Mark Creamer, he's bringing to us a really important message around supplemental insurance is what Mark really deals in and covers, and how that works and how it works to really fully insure you and your family.
Yeah, no, I wanted to comment on Dan's comment. A lot of people buy life insurance and so forth, and we phrase this as, people who have a catastrophic illness, it's a living death. It's watching yourself spend down, you're checking your savings, your 401k, accessing your life insurance, and then you pass away and you've left your family financially impoverished. And that is the biggest fear, I think, every person out there. And I would stress that on men more so because we're the protectors, right? That's the God-given kind of sense of protecting, and women have this need of security. So there's this fear / offset of protection going on in every relationship. And so when I think about that, we talk to people, we put these, policies in place with all these different features, these life insurance policies, Dan, and you were talking about that has that terminal, chronic, and critical, the heart attack, stroke, the non-terminal cancers, the terminal cancers. It has coverages. You can convert that asset into cash, but then when you pass away, there's no replacement. Like the whole point of that was to be a replacement item. And there's so many things out there that don't access those policies, or that could, jeopardize the value of those policies for your family and why you bought them to begin with, which is why, this program that Mark has significant value in offsetting those kind of supplemental fears of, devastating your family financially in trying to seek your own health. And that's a fair need in its own right. But Mark, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one of the other things that I think about too in that respect is that, if you're building wealth through your investments, my understanding is there can be some significant penalties by drawing down your investments early too. So this is if, those penalties could add up to the total amount of premium you might put into a plan like this, as you're doing that. That kind of gets away from the life insurance, but if you're just going to cash out an investment to be able to pay for certain things, that's where I'm thinking about in terms of the penalties. But, the amount of money that these plans generally cost is usually minor in comparison to what you may have to pay if you did cash out investments. And again, it takes away from what your ultimate goal is long term to be able to build that legacy.
And speaking of the cost, one of the features that I found kind of really interesting as we were discussing the show is the return of premium feature. Okay, why don't you take a couple of minutes and kind of walk us through that? Because I think with a lot of programs like this, or any insurance expense in general, people will have this kind of gut reaction to it of saying, well, what happens if I pay in and nothing ever happens to me, then it's money just foregone. So tell us a little bit about how your product works in that instance.
Absolutely. And let me first just mention the company's name. We're Globe Life Family Heritage Division. And the founder of the Family Heritage Division founded this company on the principle of returning the premium back to people. And so the way our plans work is if you purchase a plan and you keep it in place long enough, at some point down the road, and on most of our plans right now, it's 25 years. But think about it this way, the longer we go on in life, the more likely these kinds of situations are going to happen to us. So if you keep this plan in place for the 25 years, and let's say you put $1,000 a year in, $25,000 of premium in, and you've never had a claim. At that point, we're going to give you 100% of the money back to you. If you've had some small claims, we're going to take the money you put in minus the claim amount, and whatever's left over comes back to you. But unfortunately, with some kinds of situations, you really want the insurance value of this thing because we're going to pay out a lot more in benefits than you ever put in premium. So this is a kind of a win-win for everybody as you kind of go through life. If you need it, it's there. If you don't, the money's going to come back to you.
And when that claim or the return of premium, rather, occurs, that doesn't end your policy, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, these policies are what they call guarantee renewable, meaning the company can never cancel this as long as you're paying your premiums. So as you're going through, we get that money back to you. All you do is you make your next regular payment that you've been making all these years because your premium doesn't go up as you get older. And you just keep that policy as long as you want to.
Let me make sure I heard that, though, right? The premium never goes up. So once you engage a policy like this, once it's issued to you, your cost is set for life.
That is correct. Yes.
And I think that's important for people to understand because, I mean, just the inflationary conversations we've been having over the last few months, and the cost to all of these items are significantly important. Where do we stand on the idea of like how long has Global Life been around? Tell us a little bit about its service and so forth, Mark.
Absolutely. So Globe Life is a parent company, and they own several different life insurance companies and health insurance companies, and we are just one division. So Family Heritage has been around since 1989. We originally started in Ohio, which is where our corporate headquarters are, and we've expanded throughout the United States. The only state that we do not sell policies in is the state of New York. And there's all kinds of different reasons that may be, but we can help any family that needs help. So, for instance, I have clients right across the state line in New Jersey that can write policies like this on anybody that might live in the state of New York, but they have to be in the state when they sign that application. The other state, they need to be in there. But the company was founded, like I said earlier, on the principle of returning this premium. The founder of the company, who I've had the pleasure of having dinner with a couple of times, he basically had been in the supplemental area of insurance for many years, and he found that was an area that he wanted to make sure that if people didn't need this coverage, there was a benefit for them. So that's been going on since day one. And, we're sending back hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to customers that have never had to use the coverage.
That's amazing. Mark, earlier we were kind of talking about Better Business Bureau and some independent, companies out there that have ratings with the Better Business Bureau. And, without really disclosing or pointing the finger at the competition, would you share with us a little bit about the customer satisfaction experience that people have and how some of those ratings have looked?
Absolutely. I really appreciate the opportunity on that. Insurance is always one of those things that it's a promise, and you want the promise to be able to be fulfilled when the time comes. And that's one of the things I love about working with this company is the attention that they pay to customer service, all the way from the first person that you talk to all the way through the claims process. And we did have about 2 years ago, the Better Business Bureau went out and they did a customer survey that included things like customer service, billing, claims, agent, can't think of the word I'm looking for, satisfaction with their agents. And they came up with a composite rating for us as well as most of the major companies that deal with this type of insurance. And they built this on a 5-point scale, 5 stars. And what I can tell you, out of 7 companies that are located on this spectrum, our company comes in with a 4.2 out of 5-star rating. The nearest competitor that we have is 1.62. Everybody else is a lower rating than that. And I'm not going to mention any names, but we just feel like the customer service that we provide and is top notch. And what I can tell you is I can call directly to the claims or billing departments myself as an agent and talk about what's going on in a situation. That's the kind of claim service that we want to provide.
I think that says a lot, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why we've never really covered this topic on Money on Tap, having some personal experiences with those unnamed companies. So it's really fun to be able to have you here and be able to share some of those numbers. We don't have much time left here, Mark, and I want to just make sure that we create an opportunity for not only some of your thoughts here, but Ben and Dan as well, and Ben. Not Dan, Ben.
Well, I think, I know we didn't name any names of companies, but I didn't have a good customer service scenario. I mean, I really do believe protecting, with another company, and I do really believe that protecting this area is significantly important for lots of people. And I think there's lots of health changes that have happened in this, in this world we've seen between COVID, the question of what, potentially some of these shots that are now the FDA has pulled back on, what that might be doing to people. There's lots of question marks out there. I mean, whether, you're for or against it, there's just, everyone's got question marks. Stuff like this can really bring kind of a peace of mind for some of that stuff, because I think, the story is just not fully written for people's health. And, no one ever can anticipate a health change. That's the one thing. And, it's good. It's good having this conversation today. I really do appreciate that.
So I really want to thank you guys for letting me talk today a little bit about what we do. And Seth, you had asked me a question earlier about why I do this. And I think it's, for me, it's really important that my clients know why I do this as well. My wife has had a very serious chronic illness for 25 years. And we have been down that road of bankruptcy because of the things that the medical insurance does not cover. And when I found this company, having been in insurance for many, many years, I found that this kind of coverage is so important, and I've lived it, and I can actually talk to people and hopefully help them understand why these gaps that they might have would be very, very important to cover. So I just wanted you to know that, and I really do appreciate the opportunity today to talk with all of you and open to talk with anybody that might have questions.
Mark, it has been a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you so much for spending the time with us here at Money on Tap. And if you here today with us want to learn more, you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. It would be an honor for us to introduce you to Mark and have you here with us at Brayshaw Financial Group. It's why we're here, to help support you, to help protect your wealth, and to really come together to design what's going to work for you to accomplish your goals in financial planning. And this is a big part of it, folks. And we're really, it's a gift to be able to be here with you today, Mark. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I think that's it for us at Money on Tap. Be successful in your investing, folks, and we will see you here next week. Make it a great one.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.